This week on List Rate Rank.
So Uranus is god of the sky.
God of the sky. So
that's just a great phrase to be able to say.
On List Rate Rank, our hosts research various topics and each bring their own top 5 list to the show. Together they debate, discuss, and deliberate, and with the help of an expert, one definitive and indisputable top 5 list is created.
It can harbor life.
This is List Rate Rank.
welcome to List Rate Rank. I'm David Fedor.
And I'm Joe Wichryk.
Welcome to the show. Now, Joe, today we are talking about our favorite planets.
Yes, all of them. Not all of them, but I mean all of our favorite planets.
So earlier today, we held a cigarette in between our arms, and Joe was the last to pull away, so you get to go first, Joe.
So my number 5 on my list is Pluto. Because what the fuck, Pluto? You're a planet. You're not a planet. Like what's going on there? Like, I'm kind of blaming you at this point.
Oh, well, hey, let's not victim blame Pluto for its classification.
Well, I mean, if it tried harder, it could attract more mass.
You have a point to a certain degree, but
no, I agree with you.
No, I think we should stop going down this aisle. All right, so yeah, clearly Pluto was, when we were growing up, a planet.
Absolutely.
It was the 9th planet.
Yeah, it was the pizza in the solar system,
or the
right?
pickle, depending on what school you went to.
Depending on translation.
Right. But yeah, so Pluto now in 2018, Pluto is not an official quote-unquote planet of this solar system.
And then it was, and then it wasn't again, I think. It's been a rough ride for Pluto.
Yeah, technically right now it's considered a dwarf
planet. Okay, yep. So at least, can they still call them dwarfs?
I think it's okay in the planet case, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Interesting number 5. We'll come around back to that because...
you mean we're going to orbit back to Pluto?
Oh, I see what you did there.
I have so many puns ready to go for space.
I don't like puns. But what I do like is my number 5 list.
Yeah, go ahead.
My number 5 planet also happens to be the 5th planet from our sun, Jupiter.
Oh, yeah, Jupiter.
So Jupiter, the biggest planet in our solar system, has 69 moons. And even its moons are bigger than some of our planets. Like, that's how huge this thing is.
Jupiter has 69 moons?
Has 69 moons.
There's some irony there. But really, like, where do they find the room to orbit all those moons?
Well, it's the largest planet.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of space to go around it. What I like about Jupiter, here's what I like about Jupiter.
What I like about Jupiter.
It has those bands that go around. It's like banded, like storm. There are storms going around.
Oh, yeah.
It has
the
wind,
yeah.
The Great Red Spot, it's called. A huge cyclone storm that's larger than the size of Earth, that's been raging for hundreds of years right there on its surface. So it's very distinct. It has a nice, it's huge bands of storms going around with a giant red spot.
You know who else has been raging for hundreds of years? Keith Richards.
Nice.
Thank you.
All right, sir. What is your number? 4?
Well, I dig your choice on that. My number 4 is based solely on looks, and that is Neptune. It's a pretty cool looking blue ball of gas, essentially, and I actually forgot to write down which planet it is. But I'm sure we could do the my mother pickle thing.
Yeah,
now, you screwed me up with the pickles. In any event, Neptune is my number 4.
Neptune would be the 8th planet in the solar system.
The 8th planet.
Yeah.
8 is
so
enough.
it's the longest. It's the farthest now that Pluto's not a planet.
Right. Well, don't they have a elliptical orbit where sometimes Neptune is further out?
Possibly.
I might be making that up.
I
don't think so.
I'm not sure.
So, Dave, what is?
I can't contribute too much towards Neptune because maybe it didn't make my top 5.
I'm just saying, it's a pretty looking planet.
Not as pretty as my number 4,
which is
Uranus.
There it is.
I figured let's tackle it right away. It's primarily the butt of the jokes of the planets,
and it orbits the sun. What is it, like 56 times in one Earth year? But if it would just relax, it could probably do more.
Here's what I like about Uranus. It's the only planet of the 8 main planets in our solar system that is named from Greek mythology as opposed to Roman mythology.
Is that why it starts with a vowel? I'm just throwing that out there because I think it's the only planet that starts with a vowel.
Well, Earth starts with a vowel.
It's a sometimes E.
But yeah, so it's Greek for god of the sky.
So Uranus is god of the sky.
God of the sky. So
that's just a great phrase to be able to say.
Well, here's the weird. So here's the thing that made Uranus number 4 on my list and not number 5 is how they named it. It's a very interesting story.
Yeah, go ahead.
The dude who discovered it, like it went for like years after discovering it before they actually gave a name to it. So then they were finally like, okay, this is going to be like an official planet. They went to the guy who discovered it and was like, hey, dude, you discovered this. You get to pick a name for it.
Oh, nice.
So it was like, I'm going to honor our king by naming this planet after him. Everybody will call this Georgius Sirius, which means George's star. The rest of the world is like, no. Like, you can't just name this after this George dude. We have all these other planets that are named after, like, gods. We're gonna name. We're picking another name.
Well, that's another conversation entirely. Like the best gods. So we'll have to. List that at some point.
So this is how they landed on Uranus. Was I think the ones that were discovered in succession. Saturn is the father of Jupiter. So then they went, okay, what's Saturn's father? And that was the Greek god of the sky, and it's spelled Uranus. Ouranos.
Uranus.
And translated, it went from Uranus to Uranus, and that's how Uranus, or Uranus as sometimes it's called,
by prudes.
Yeah.
Just
but it has faint up and down rings, which are cool. But
you can bleach those off.
But other than the name and the faint rings, there's not too much more interesting about Uranus.
There's not a lot going on down there, is what you're saying.
Not going to stick around Uranus for too long.
Fair enough. When we have a space colonoscopy, that'll be the first one to check out.
I think we got them all. So let's
that was pretty
3.
much okay. So my number 3 is Mercury, and the reason is because it's named after a dime, and I thought that was really freaking cool.
No.
What do you mean no?
That's not. They didn't name it after
a mercury dime.
Well, the mercury dime is a thing, but I don't think they named the planet after the dime.
Yeah, they definitely named it after the dime.
When was Mercury discovered?
I don't know. Like, that wasn't in my notes.
Like the 1600s, probably. Like way before
Who
the U.S.
hell
currency
is
has
looking
dimes.
at Mercury in the 1600s?
Galileo
It's like the
and
Dark
shit.
Ages.
Man, you're gonna make me look up Mercury.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to Google for an official naming time of the planet Mercury to make sure it's not named after a dime. Those dimes are really
I know
cool,
for a
though.
fact that it's not named after a dime.
Well, they're the smallest dimes out of all
I'm
the
not gonna
dimes.
look there.
Oh man,
Doesn't
I almost
count.
had you.
All right, so Mercury is smallest and innermost planet in the solar system.
Yeah, like the dime.
Named after the Roman deity Mercury, the messenger
Who is
of the
on
gods.
the frickin' dime.
Right, but all right, hold on. I can't believe I'm doing your research for you.
I knew this would happen.
All right, when was it discovered? Ancient astronomers.
Ancient astronomers.
Earliest known recorded observations of Mercury are from tablets. So it was so long ago.
Okay, so they didn't have computers yet. Big deal.
14th century BC.
All right, well, I gotta check my dimes.
So you don't have dimes in your pocket that are from BC times. But anyway, tell me else about besides
I like it
dimes.
because it's the smallest planet. I like it because it's like a real fast planet, and it's like totally like tripping balls around the sun, right?
Yeah.
And it's gonna be the first one swallowed up when our sun becomes a red giant. So we're not gonna have Mercury around very long, guys. So let's appreciate him while he's here.
Messenger of the gods. All right, my number 3. Let me get back to my list.
Just because you have scientific facts doesn't mean you're right.
Hey, I spent like a day on Wikipedia to find this shit.
Dude,
so I'm
America
going to
has
use it.
proven science doesn't mean you're right.
Oh, God damn it. My planet number 3, Mars.
That's a good one.
4th planet from our sun. It's second smallest after Mercury, which
Matt Damon
I didn't
was
know
there.
that. Matt Damon was on Mars.
Yeah.
That is on my list. Pop culture
Nice.
- Martian.
Just hyphen Matt Damon.
So what's cool about this is how much influence Mars has had on us here on Earth. Like Mars is like the place that we think we could colonize, or Mars is the place that water once has existed, or aliens come from. We call aliens Martians because of Mars. These are,
Why do you think that is?
just, science fiction.
No, but I'm saying, like, why do you think everyone picked Mars to be the planet? When they could have been, like, there's uraniums coming,
Yeah. I don't know.
Is it because it's more visible or
I think it's more believable, maybe because it's closest.
closest? It's a good point.
I don't know if it... Hold on 1 second. Let me check notes. It is not closest. We'll get to that later. But a couple other cool things about Mars that I liked is that there was at one point liquid water on Mars. That's pretty much confirmed at this point. There's currently frozen water on the poles. We know that already. The largest volcano and the second highest known mountain in the solar system is on Mars.
Oh, that's awesome.
Which is crazy. There's so many other larger things in our solar system, but the largest
But they're like
volcano-
gas giants and stuff like that. So you're not like
Yeah.
we don't even know if there's like a core, like a Milky Center or something like that.
It's like a Cadbury
Like
egg.
a Cadbury egg of planets.
Oh, man.
Now see, and the planets
Planet I would go
yeah,
to.
that would be awesome. I'd mine the shit out of that.
Yeah. Another cool thing, it only takes about a year to get to Mars. So, like, if we do get colonies up there, like, you could totally just...
Grab your Volkswagen van and
Yeah.
go. That's really cool. I like that. A year to get to Mars.
Yeah. I would
Nice.
totally go. Would you go to Mars if
No.
it only took a year?
Dude, I don't even like to leave like the state. I don't cross bridges. I'm from Pittsburgh. If there's a tunnel, I either slow down or turn.
You're the one who's making all the mess.
No
I
one-
would go. I would go, and I would definitely go. Just to say I went. Just to have that experience.
I will go to Canada.
That's kind of like Mars.
A little bit. I bet they talk the same.
All the water's frozen up there, too, I think.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. That's what Mars and Canada has in common. So yeah. Do you have any more about Mars?
No, that's it. Mars is kind of boring after that.
Okay. So my planet, which you've already touched upon, is Jupiter, and for one single shining carbonetic reason, it rains diamonds there.
What?
The pressure is so great that their rain is diamonds.
That's insane.
That is insane. And you can Google that and fact check me because I'm not bullshitting you on that one.
Well, I kind of sped my way through Jupiter, so I didn't see that, but I'll take your word for it. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, I was on NASA's planetary discovery page or whatever it was. You know what? I should probably actually write down the websites that I get this information from so people can check it out as well.
Well, I can tell you mine is all Wikipedia, so it may or may not be correct.
But yeah, Jupiter, awesome place. Giant storms, rains diamonds. That's probably like that whole swirly thing. It's
Yeah.
just, like tearing through that town with diamonds.
What's crazy to me is Jupiter is, it's the quote-unquote gas giant, or one
Yeah.
of the gas giants. I think Neptune is the other one.
Neptune is also a gas giant, I believe.
The fact that Jupiter lacks a, quote, well-defined solid surface. So it itself is just a giant ball of who knows what.
Well, I think we could Google that for sure.
Well,
They probably know what it is.
but my mind...
Most of it's diamonds.
Like to me, I think a planet, I think of like a solid place that I could stand or land a ship on, or like if Jupiter is a gas giant, where
Pluto's not a planet at all.
Pluto's not a planet at all, but it's more solid. Yeah, so like that to me is fascinating.
Yeah, it's a weird quantification, I guess. Quantification. It's a weird quality that the differentiation of planets have, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, there should be liquid giants out there, like just giant floating balls of water, right? Like, why wouldn't that happen? Or ice.
I guess we would be closest, but we're more molten than like our crust and our surfaces.
Right, we got a gooey molten center.
Yeah, we're the Cadbury eggs of the galaxy.
Of the galaxy, yeah.
Yeah.
I
All
like
right,
it.
my number 2,
Yeah, go ahead.
the second planet from the sun, and my number 2 pick, Venus.
Oh, nice.
It's the closest planet to Earth. It's the closest planet that kind of resembles Earth. It's our quote-unquote sister planet. This is the one I fell down a rabbit hole doing research on because it was ridiculously fascinating.
Well, do tell, Dave.
So it is the first planet beyond Earth to be visited by spacecraft and to be landed on. It's just slightly smaller than Earth. And it has a crust and mantle and core construction
So
like
you're
Earth
saying
does.
it's still an active planet?
I wouldn't say it's active, but I'm saying it resembles what Earth is. Like once Earth gets too hot to be habitable, our water dries up and shit, it's going to be Venus. It's like that's pretty much, it seems, what Venus is like. It's the second brightest natural object in our sky. Moon is our number 1.
Right.
Venus is second. Its
So it's
atmosphere,
burning like a silver flame out there?
its atmosphere is 96% carbon dioxide. So it actually has like,
So were Earthlings on there already then?
I don't know. Actually, no, because it's the hottest planet.
Well, I'm saying with 96% carbon dioxide, if you ignore global warming, we're going to end up like Venus.
Yeah, we are totally going. Oh, yeah. So our ancestors might have come
From
from Venus.
Venus.
And now we're screwing this one up, and then we'll go to Mars.
Yeah.
Actually, we might skip all the way to
Jupiter.
Jupiter?
Let's go to
Gas
Jupiter.
giant.
Can't really
Live in
fuck
that
up
bubble.
Jupiter. It's not even a planet, right?
So even though Mercury is closer to the sun, Venus is the hottest planet, like because of the atmosphere and stuff.
Right.
The atmosphere is 92 times the pressure here on Earth, which is insane.
So if I weighed like 100 pounds on Earth,
You'd
I'd weigh
be
9,200 pounds on Venus.
Yeah,
Oh, man.
yeah.
It's not good for the knees.
Its surface is all pretty desert-like, has tons of volcanoes, the most volcanoes out of any planet.
No, are they active still, or does it now?
Yeah. Because of the volcanoes so often that it resurfaces itself.
Oh, so
So-
it's constantly recreating its like crust.
Its crust, yeah.
Oh, that's
It
cool.
resurfaces itself.
So it's like flipping a house out there.
It is. A new coat of paint on Venus. It's often an inspiration for writers and poets. It's referred to as the morning star or the evening star. And then I listened to Bananarama's Venus on repeat like 7 times. Like it just earwigged itself into my brain.
That I believe was, I want to say, written originally by Shocking Blue.
That is true. It is a cover, which I think I found out about
Researching Venus.
researching Venus. But then you also got the Venus de Milo and the Birth of Venus painting that are also, kind of referencing the planet as well. So it has kind of like Mars is pop culture-y now in sci-fi. Back when people sculpted and painted,
It was Venus.
it was Venus
Nice.
and wrote.
I like it. I like it.
So Venus is my number 2.
I really dig that choice. That's really great. So let's put this to bed here with my number 1. And if you love it, you got to put a ring on it, and that is Saturn. So just because it's the coolest planet, you can actually see the rings from like regular telescopes from the Earth. It was the first planet I ever looked at through a telescope. And so Saturn, the planet with a ring on it, the planet that dressed up for the show. That's my choice.
Well, I have to say that is an amazing choice for number 1. Any smart, intelligent person would make that choice.
I see where this is going.
Because I did as well. Saturn is my number 1 planet.
All right.
So without a doubt,
Saturn makes.
Saturn, and mine, it says rings with exclamation point. 6th planet from the sun, 2nd largest, 95 times larger than Earth, named after the Roman god of agriculture.
Yeah, because you can farm the shit out of Saturn.
Right.
You're probably growing wheat up there right now.
Well, what's crazy is like some planets, like Mars, named after the Roman god of war. It's like, no, we're going to name Saturn Roman god of agriculture.
It's almost like a presidential cabinet up there.
The Saturn is also the most distant planet visible to the naked eye, which I think is really cool.
Oh, didn't know that.
So it's like
That's
that's
a
farthest
nice
we can
fact.
see in terms of the planet. It has 62 moons, 53 of which are named. So it has.
So
like,
wait, we might have a chance to name a moon.
That's what I'm talking about.
Let's do it. We gotta figure out which ones aren't named and name a moon.
Yeah.
This is the moon of list right rank.
LRR.
I dig it.
But the biggest moon, Titan.
Yes.
So here's the cool shit about Titan. It's so big, it has its own atmosphere, it's larger than the planet Mercury, and a lot of people think that could be the next Earth. That could be the place that we actually go and set up colonizations and things like that.
So a habitable jumping off point to the deep space.
It only takes about 4 to 7 years to get there, so it's completely like you could definitely go there in one lifetime, as opposed to other places that
You have to bring a lot of shit with you.
Yeah, I would imagine at this point it would be to the point where it's like, oh, all right, we're gonna cryogenically
Just
freeze
like
you and stuff.
Start
Yeah,
throwing satellites.
here's
and landers.
unlimited Netflix account. You could just go to
Dude,
sleep.
how bad would the internet suck if you were on Titan?
I'm pretty sure you'd have to get like
Would you get
a
shows in the
universal.
50s?
You'd have to start making your own shit out there.
You could like watch Friends.
You could remake Friends, and nobody would know.
You'd be a god of Titan.
You could bet on all the sporting events and win them because they would not know.
The transmission would never get there.
Right. Be like, hey, the New York Giants are actually going to pull this one out. They're going to beat the Patriots.
That's
And
fantastic.
and then all the people up there will be like, what are you talking about? What's a New York Giant?
Oh, it doesn't matter. You can bet on it. Oh, you can bet on it.
Okay. And then the one final thing that endeared me to Saturn was recently, like last year, they had that spacecraft, Cassini.
Oh, yeah. Is that the one that crashed into it?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it studied it, and it was up there for like 20 years.
Then it just slammed into
Well,
it.
intentionally. Like it did all of its research, and it lived out its mission. Excuse me if I start tearing up. But they didn't want it accidentally crashing into one of the moons, specifically Titan, because they didn't want to like mess up Titan. So they were like, all right, let's set this thing down and crash land it on the surface. As it's going down and crash landing, it's sending data back. And
how long does that take to get back that data? Like,
I think what they did, like, it only took a couple hours.
wow,
I
that's
think.
crazy. You can communicate with Titan a couple hours
Yeah.
after.
So it's kind of like early 90s AOL.
Yeah. Yeah, you're just sitting there. It's like, okay, I'm going to download this song by Green Day, and then you go and make some soup and a grilled cheese, smoke
Yeah.
a bowl, come back, and
Yeah,
your song's halfway done.
So yeah, before we get into our combined top 5 list, let's talk a little bit about the ones that didn't make the list. Let's talk about the honorable mentions.
All right, well, my honorable mention is exoplanets.
Tell me about exoplanets.
Exoplanets are planets that aren't in our particular solar system, but still have the capability to inhabit life and are probably more probable to inhabit life because there are a lot of planets out there that are very similar to the Earth, very similar to Titan, that have water on them, not in liquid form for some reason. Why we have the only liquid water around here is ridiculous. We should start charging like $6 a bottle for it.
That's pretty cool. I also wanted to mention the dwarf planets. We touched on it briefly with Pluto, but there's actually a ton of dwarf planets. Right now there are 5 official ones.
Oh, yeah?
And every so often they're trying to make cases to classify these other bodies out there as dwarf planets.
They're going to screw up that acronym.
Well, so there's a dwarf planet named Ceres. Ceres. I might be saying that incorrectly.
Like the radio station.
No, Ceres. Ceres.
Ceres.
Ceres.
Curries?
Curries. Ceres. Pretty sure it's Ceres.
Ceres.
But it's larger than Pluto and was once considered one of the real planets before Pluto. Like, it was one of the main.
It was one of us.
It was.
One of us.
Yeah. So Ceres, before Ceres was demoted, before Pluto was even promoted and then demoted, Ceres was a planet.
Well, how pissed was Ceres?
Right?
What's
There was
Ceres
this
do?
uproar about Pluto getting declassified, and yet here's Ceres. Hey, guys, this happened to me.
Like, I had this job, man.
Yeah.
I had this.
There's 2 other ones, Haumea, Haumea, and then Maki.
Was that found by the observatory in Hawaii?
Yeah, I think both of those were. And then Eris, Eris. So those are the 5 dwarf planets. And then there's a bunch of others that are like...
People are getting crazy with names these days, man.
Yeah.
Like Eris. Just name your kid Aaron. Come on. Like, what the hell?
In reference to our lists, our top 5, between the two of us, we named all of them except for one,
And
Earth.
Well,
None
yeah,
of us picked
'cause
Earth.
You're never a hero in your hometown.
Yeah. So I found it interesting that...
I think it's because we all have like the thirst for exploration and an image of what things could be, that we don't look to our own planet to be the future. We look to other planets to be the future.
Yeah. And
I
it's like,
believe the planets are the future.
teach them well and let them lead the way.
Let's get a whole bunch of celebrities to sing that song.
Just one really good lady should be able to handle it.
Yeah, all right. We'll get Beyonce.
Yeah, so Earth didn't make the list, even though it is the only one in our solar system that is hosting life currently.
And the only one that we've actually been to.
Yeah.
So
sorry.
It's like, you know what? Earth is like the Ohio of the solar system. It might feel all right to be there, but you really don't want to say it's your favorite place around.
So now, making our way to our combined list, Saturn makes it
for
because it is number 1 on each of our lists, and Jupiter was listed on both of our lists, so Jupiter gets an automatic pass to our next list.
All right. So we got raining diamonds and putting rings on it. Diamond rings.
So that leaves 3 spaces with Venus, Mars, Uranus, Mercury, Neptune, and Pluto battling it out for the final 3 spots.
Well, I will say, after your amazing comparison of pop culture at the time to Venus, I would say Venus should definitely make it on that list.
I was very impressed with
all of the accolades that
the Roman goddess of love, Venus. I agree. Let's put her in our joint top 5.
Okay.
So that leaves us
Mercury, Neptune, Pluto. Well, I guess we technically can't put Pluto on the list.
That would be my argument, is Pluto's technically not a planet. It is a dwarf planet. So let's cross that off right now.
Well, I'm going with Mercury because it's named after dimes.
Tell me, in my brief research, I was not impressed with Mercury, nor was I impressed with Neptune.
Well, Neptune, I looked at pictures from the Hubble Space Telescope of Neptune, and it looks really cool. It's just like a pretty looking color. It's like a pretty planet. But I'm willing to forego Neptune and maybe go with the other pop cultural favorite of Mars, and then let Mars and Venus battle it out with the expert.
I definitely think that Mars deserves a spot in that joint list for a lot of the reasons earlier that we mentioned.
Yeah.
The Martians, the obsessive sci-fi connections.
Like that Michael J. Fox movie, Mars Attacks.
Yes,
Yeah.
Mars Attacks, for crying out loud.
There we go.
All right, so now we have Saturn, Jupiter, Venus, and Mars. We have 1 spot left. We have Uranus, Mercury, and Neptune. Here's the notes that I collected on Mercury. It's the closest to the sun. It's the smallest planet. Its surface has lots of craters like our moon. And the 4th one, I put boring.
It's the Rudy of planets, man. Rudy.
Oh, see, I thought you were talking Rudy from Cosby Show.
No.
You're talking Rudy from Notre Dame.
Rudy from the movie.
Notre Dame, yeah. Remember the Titans. Remember the Rudy.
I think it was called Rudy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to be honest, besides the name, there's not too much more interesting with Uranus.
Yeah, I'm kind of at a loss here. My vote is for Mercury, and I'll flip you for it. Heads, Mercury goes in. Tails, it doesn't. It's heads. Mercury's in.
All right, Mercury is number 5.
So let's recap, Dave.
All right, so our joint list is Saturn, Jupiter, Venus, Mars, and Mercury. So our point values are going to be
skyrocketing
assessed
to the moon.
Well, why stop at the moon, Joe? Let's go to the planets.
Let's go to Uranus.
All right, so let's see who owns these. We're each going to share Saturn since we both ranked it as number 1s. Jupiter, you had ranked 2. I had ranked 5. So you get control of that in our combined round. Venus, will be mine. Mars will be mine. Mercury will be yours.
Mercury will be mine, Dave. It will be mine.
All right, so we're going to take this to the expert and find out how these rank up. But first, a message from our sponsor.
Moon Tech Realty.
Hello, my name is Brian, and I help run Disc Golf Examiner. Now, you may be asking yourself, what's disc golf?
Golf! Frisbee golf, Jerry! Golf with a frisbee!
It's a growing sport that is played like golf, but with a disc or frisbee, and your target is a basket made of chains that catches discs.
Get it!
We want you to join us during this exciting expansion of our sport. If you're interested, check out Disc Golf Examiner on Facebook and YouTube, or visit us on our website at discgolfexaminer.com. And as always, keep banging those chains.
Yeah! Woo! Woo!
All right, welcome back. Gene Mikulka is an amateur spaceflight historian, amateur astronomer, and model rocketry enthusiast, and has presented talks about human spaceflight programs to schools and civic groups. He holds a BA in political science and earth science from Keene University and is a longtime member of the Planetary Society. Gene started the Talking Space podcast in 2009 and is our planet expert today. Gene, welcome to List Rate Rank.
It's an honor to be here, sir. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you for your time and for your presumed expertise. We'll get to that in a moment.
Presumed.
Presumed.
That was very polite of you.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens tonight.
Yeah, we're gonna put you on the spot, and we're gonna talk about all the planets in our solar system. But before we do, tell us a little bit about you've been into space since you were a kid, right? You grew up in the
About his
Apollo
solar system.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's essentially what it has been since I was about maybe 4 or 5 years old, like any 4 or 5 year old that was growing up in the early 1970s. I grew up in Apollo's shadow, the shadow of the Apollo program. And it was just captivating to go ahead and see humans walking on the moon. I mean,
Presumably.
Well, I will prompt your listeners to go ahead and go to a website called clavius.org, and that basically goes ahead and debunks the hoaxers completely.
There's also a very popular MythBusters episode where they did a lot of the debunking and myth busting. I guess it would be myth busting. So, I mean, that we're going to save that for our conspiracy theorist episode. We could just for the sake of this
It's a tie-in. It's a crossover.
Yeah, we'll presume that what we haven't done is have any manned missions to
Counterpoint.
planets. We haven't had any manned missions to planets yet. Is that on the horizon? What do you see for like maybe Mars or Mercury?
Going for all
Jupiter?
these space bonds?
Funny you should say that, gentlemen. We do actually have there's actually a bunch of efforts going on right now to get humans to Mars. NASA, of course, has its own effort going on. They're trying to rebuild the interplanetary infrastructure that we kind of trashed after the Apollo program. In the Saturn V, we don't have it anymore. The Apollo Command Service module that got us to the moon, again, we don't have it anymore. The lunar module, again, it looks great in a museum, not going to fly. So what do? We have to go ahead and rebuild that infrastructure. And NASA's trying to do that right now. They have a new vehicle called the Space Launch System. It is set to launch right now around the 2020 timeframe. That's unfortunately been moving to the right a lot due to some development issues that they've been having with the vehicle.
So are you saying like the reason we haven't already taken this step is because we don't have the right cars?
That's correct. We didn't have the right cars. The space shuttle, I'm not going to knock it. It was a great vehicle for what it did, which was basically teach us how to leverage Earth orbit and do it very well indeed. It essentially, you couldn't build the International Space Station, for instance, without the space shuttle, period. You just couldn't do it. We would not have the Hubble Space Telescope if it were not for the space shuttle, because Hubble was designed to be serviced every so often, and Hubble did. I mean, the shuttle did perform that. Problem was, though, it kind of trapped us in low Earth orbit, I think, for about maybe 30 years. And I think that was due to, in part, really some bad political decisions, too. A lot of folks within NASA were expecting, and we'll fly shuttle for another 10 years and then, look at the moon and then go on to Mars and so on. In fact, after the unfortunate accident we had with Columbia in February of 2003, after the investigation, the Columbia Accident Investigation Board was the one that actually recommended we probably want to go ahead and shut shuttle down and go off to do other things.
Because those were the same shuttles that were used over and over and over again since the 80s. Because I'm about 10 years younger than you, so when I remember space travel from my youth, it's all about the Challenger.
Yeah.
So with that big setback, and then the Columbia, there was a lot of money problems with NASA to get funding and stuff like that, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, NASA's budget historically has been flat, pretty much. NASA, if you really go ahead and look at the budget and what's been going on, NASA really only gets about maybe less than half a penny of every tax dollar that you spend. So everybody thinks that NASA's budget is really, really about, oh my Lord, it's probably about as high as the military budget, right? Well, heck, if we had the military budget, we'd have the Starship Enterprise up there by now. So
well, let's do that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So I mean, it's slowly coming up slightly, but it's not coming up as fast as we want.
So would you have any thoughts on a solution for that? Like what gets people back interested in space? Like in 1964 when Kennedy was faking and putting a man on the moon. Like how do we get people back involved with that?
Well, that's what we need to do. And we need to go ahead and do something that's going to, excite the imagination. And
do we need the Russians?
I don't think so. I mean, to be honest with you, I'd like to see them along as part of this whole thing. I'd actually like to see Europe. I'd like to see Russia. I'd like to see.
Because it seems like that's what we're building to is more of like a collaborative space program, just not the U.S., not the Russians, not China, but everyone working together.
Not only that, but with Elon Musk and the SpaceX, that's becoming like privatized. Is something like that going to be a thing?
Well, it kind of already is. But to answer the other question first. You're absolutely correct. It's going to take a village to get to Mars right now, because Mars is just too darn expensive for one entity to go ahead and spend its money on. It is estimated anywhere between, I don't believe that, I'm trying to remember the numbers now. I think somebody had ran the numbers, and it was going to be like, when all was said and done, $300 billion just to go ahead and get the mission off and going.
You got the checkbook? Do you have the list rank checkbook?
Yeah, well, right. We got to start a GoFundMe.
Right, exactly. So
Yeah, I mean, I think that's actually a great idea. I think that's a good way to get people back interested if they feel they're invested in a space program. Or feel like that might be something that would help.
Seeing some kind of success or some kind of progress, because a lot of the same things now we're like you said, low orbit stuff.
Here's some rocks,
kind of just floating around in the same like space station type world. I think we need something big like going to Mars or going outside of our solar system.
Like I'll wave a handkerchief at the Mars rocket, just like they did the Titanic. Hopefully different results, but
well, to bring us back to low Earth orbit for a minute, NASA does have a game plan. There was during the Obama administration, I believe that still holds because it looks like we're following that same game plan now. It essentially goes ahead and takes us first to low Earth orbit, where we're actually going to go ahead and use the ISS to figure out ways to go ahead and make sure that our equipment is mature enough to go ahead and make the next step, which is going to the moon. There is a plan right now to build a what they're calling a deep space gateway. They've renamed it, but that's the way I remember it anyway. And that deep space gateway is going to be around the moon. It's going to be sort of a mini ISS,
like a highway.
Yeah, pretty much around. It's going to sit there and just basically be your kind of way station down to the lunar surface. You could actually go ahead. They're envisioning actually the lunar lander, whatever it's going to look like, and I believe NASA's put out a request for information on how industry should go ahead and build the next generation lunar lander. So I see commercial getting involved in building that next lunar lander, and I don't think NASA is going to build it. So to one of your questions, yeah, commercial is going to be involved in this, and yeah, they're going to play a big part. But this Deep Space Gateway is going to go ahead, have the lander attached to it, and that lander would probably go ahead, be reused, and we would test our material to get to Mars. For instance, the moon, as we discovered back, I believe it was the Clementine mission, actually in the 1990s, the military put on. We actually found that there was water at the South Pole. Now, by water, I mean frozen ice. Mm-hmm. And the idea is, okay, so if there's abundant water ice over there, can we turn that into hydrogen fuel and synthesize it there on the lunar surface? So in this way, we don't have to bring all of our fuel back with us.
So the moon is a gas station.
Right, exactly. That's exactly
cool. Yeah.
I dig it.
So
is that like $3 a gallon, or like what are we talking price?
Well, yeah, we're gonna have to go ahead and ask OPEC about that one. But that's exactly where we're heading with this. But to the ISS again, as we're learning new techniques. Like, for instance, we're growing food on the International Space Station. We're growing plants to figure out, are these plants edible out there, so on. We're testing other technologies. For instance, the water recycling on the ISS. Oh boy, how can I put this? There's a saying on board the International Space Station: today's coffee is tomorrow's coffee. There's there's a water reclamation system on board the ISS that, yes, picks up wastewater, filters it through the system, and goes ahead and basically out the other end, you got potable water. So
this is how they make Gatorade, is from what I understand.
Yeah, well,
it's like piss.
Yeah, pretty much. But
hey, I saw Martian, so I kind of know what's going on there with the potatoes and the water and the drinking and
a very accurate description of the entire process, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
But let's. I'd love to. I know we could go on and on about just space travel itself, but
we should have him back on for our best places to travel in space show.
Yeah, definitely. That's the beautiful thing about space, is there are so many topics.
There's all of it.
This episode, we're talking specifically about the planets.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to direct us a little bit towards just talking a little bit about each of them and things like that. So what we'll do now is we'll present to you our joint top 5 list. These are the ones that made it past our first round, and then I'm going to have you rank them 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1.
Okay.
All right. So the first planet, Saturn.
Mm-hmm.
Next, Jupiter. We have Venus, Mars, and lastly, Mercury.
Because that planet got named after a dime.
It did not get
named after a dime. It's called Mercury. It's a Mercury dime.
The planet was first. Well, you're the expert. You could let us know.
The planet was indeed first.
Well, sure, in existence.
All right. So, Gene, of those 5, which one is the least worthy? Which one is number 5?
Actually, on the list I prepared,
he has none of our planets. He's created his own solar system.
Pretty much. No. The 2 that did not appear, in fact, I actually struggled with this. I'll be honest with you guys, because this is sort of like trying to name your favorite kids, So,
super easy.
Yeah. If you're a parent, this is like trying to name your favorite kids. So Mercury and Venus didn't actually make my list at all, to be honest with you. Mercury just doesn't get a lot of love. We did have a spacecraft around there. NASA did, the Messenger spacecraft. The European Space Agency, in a joint effort with JAXA, the Japanese Space Agency, they're preparing to send a probe out there in back over to Mercury to kind of pick up from where NASA's mission left off with some of the interesting science that was going on out there. That mission should fly, I believe, next year. Venus is also a world. Actually, the Venus is kind of an intriguing place. It's the same size as the Earth. It's the same mass as the Earth. It's a place that, you know, really should be Earth-like in any way. In fact, if early astronomers looked at Venus and looked through the telescope and really saw this fog and all of this, and they assumed, well, you know, if there's this fog there should be the Venus is obviously a swamp planet. You know, and there might be, you know, ferns. Where there's ferns, there's frogs or even dinosaurs. You know, observation.
Oh, the dinosaur one.
Yeah, observation. You can't see a darn thing on Venus. You know,
why is that?
So there's no ferns and dinosaurs.
No ferns and dinosaurs. The surface temperature is about 900 degrees Fahrenheit. So
that's about my apartment right now.
Yeah. So you I kind of know the feeling. Venus is it should be Earth-like in every way, and it's not, because
is it a chemical reaction in the atmosphere that causes that, or like what makes Venus not a place where I would like to go on vacation?
Well, you've heard of the greenhouse effect, right?
Sure.
Okay, so that's what's basically messing Venus up. It's
fake news has killed Venus.
Pretty much, yeah. The whole idea is, why did that happen? We don't know. We're trying to figure out the root cause of that. So then this way we can prevent the Earth from becoming
let me
Venus.
Let me just throw something out here real quick.
Sure.
Do you think we were from Venus and then came to Earth because Earth was a Venus-like planet?
That's an interesting thought. I can't say yay or nay to it. I know about the theory of other, possibly other cells on asteroids impacting Earth, and lo and behold, guess what? That interacting with the early environment, because again, this is what Earth might have been like in the early time, but somehow or other was able to correct itself. And but I can't. That's pure speculation, and I can't.
And that's what
I'm not going to engage on that.
Pure speculation.
So did Venus start out kind of like Earth and devolved into what it is now, or did Earth start like Venus is now and evolve into where it is?
I think they both kind of like had the same kind of start. I mean, Earth was not the pretty place. It didn't grow up to be the pretty place you see here. It also had its sort of toxic stage. In fact,
like the 80s.
Yeah, you can call that. You can call it that way.
So there's hope for Venus. Venus can turn itself around, and that might become habitable at some point.
Well, not really. I mean, you'd have to do some serious terraforming, and I just don't see that happening. Terraforming, and I hear Elon Musk talking about terraforming Mars all the time, and terraforming isn't something that you can just go ahead and spend money on for 50 years or 100 years or 300 years. That's terraforming a world is like 1,000-year kind of voyage, and you really have to have things perpetuating to go ahead and do that. That's why when I hear Elon Musk or anybody else talk about terraforming Mars or terraforming another world within our solar system, I kind of scoff at it a little bit, because I don't think anybody's really got that kind of stick-to-itiveness.
Oh, see, that's good to hear, because like that's not what I think the public is getting out of this. I think what the public gets out of these, like, Elon Musk and TED Talks and all that stuff, is, okay, yeah, we can go ahead and do this. Let's just start. And it feels like that's not the case.
Gentlemen, I've been listening to stuff like that since attending National Space Society Space Development Conferences since 1989. I've been listening to stuff like that for the past 30 years, and the future hasn't come yet. I mean, we're not traveling at the speed of light, where they'll have to lose our luggage beforehand. This type of technology takes time, and not a lot of people really, really fully grasp that. And Elon Musk is basically saying that he'll probably have his large rocket ready by 2025. I have my doubts, because NASA is working on, an even larger vehicle than what he's working on, and it still isn't ready.
All right. So if Mercury is your number 5, Venus is your number 4, what's your number 3?
Holy cow! I got us really off track, didn't I?
Yeah. Okay. Number 3 was Saturn because of its ring system. It is probably the most prettiest thing in the solar system, in my opinion, anyway. The ring system is it's just exquisite. People line up. I mean, I've been at star parties where they line up at telescopes just to see the ring system, and it is just absolutely exquisite. The world too, it's kind of an interesting place by volume. It's actually very, very light because it's made up of hydrogen, 75%, there, helium about maybe 25%. If you were able to go ahead and build a large swimming pool, you could drop Saturn in that to drop Saturn into it, it would float.
Oh, that's cool.
Wow.
Yeah, then because it is just so it's the least densest world in the solar system.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
And if you love it, you got to put a ring on it.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. Now, I do want to go back a little bit because you touched on something that might be more interesting than anything in the solar system. Tell me about star parties.
Oh, star parties. Okay.
Kate Blanchett.
I'm picturing lots of funky stuff going on at star parties.
I'm not going to go there. But, there are some funky things that happen after dark, but I'm not going to go there, under pain of death. But what a star party is basically an astronomy club will go ahead and host a star party. Basically, all of the members will go ahead, take their telescopes out, point it at something that the public might be interested in taking a look at, and folks just line up and take a look at the telescope and see what's in there, see what they can see. The amateur astronomer will go ahead, they'll either point at Saturn, Jupiter, or some far-flung galaxy, or they'll try to find the furthest thing that they can see with their telescope, and they'll go ahead and they'll point it out there and have you see this. Now, it might look like a small little splotch in the eyepiece, but the exciting part about it is this: that light from that splotch is something like 12 or 13 billion with a B light years away. So by the time this is the further you look out into space, the more you look backward into time. It's just this weird juxtaposition.
Nice. Cool. All right, so back to our planets. We have Mars and Jupiter left on our top 5. Give me your number 2.
My number 2, if I can pull that up, was actually Mars. Because Mars it's just intrigued us over the eons, over the history. Its day is about maybe almost the same length as the Earth's. We're about 23 hours 56 minutes if you give a couple of minutes. Mars is about 24 hours 37 minutes long. It's probably the second smallest world in the solar system. I think it's only about maybe, and I'm trying to see if I'm looking at my notes here. I'm sorry, guys, I'm cheating.
It's the size of Michigan.
Yeah. Yeah. Or actually, I was going to say Texas, but about 4,221 miles in diameter. So it's actually the second tiniest in.
So it's like a fourth of the Earth, eh?
Yeah, yeah, you got it. It does have seasons just like the Earth does. But there's some intriguing places over there. Like, for instance, you've got a place called Olympus Mons. It's actually it's actually an inert volcano that is something like 78,000 feet high. To put this in perspective, Mount Everest on Earth is 29,000 feet.
Wow.
So yeah, so imagine.
We haven't sworn yet in this episode, I don't think.
Yeah.
So, like, holy shit!
Well,
Damn,
yeah.
That's a big fucking mountain.
Yeah, if you're not standing at the foot of that thing and you don't go ahead and drop the F-bomb, you've got bigger riches, man. Anyway, I mean, imagine going ahead and skiing down that thing. There's another feature on there, Mariner Valley. It was named for the spacecraft that actually discovered it, Mariner 9. It's about 7 miles deep. One of the Grand Canyon could get lost in one of its minor tributaries, to give you an idea of how huge this place is.
So it's way smaller than Earth, but yet its mountains are higher and its valleys are lower.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's like a ridiculously extreme surface. Why do we want to habitate that then?
I mean, to look at it, dude.
Well, yeah, right now, just to say, if you're talking about colonization, that's a whole different ball of wax. My thought is, and I'm sort of in the Dr. Carl Sagan camp on this one. If we don't know even if the place is inhabited yet. I mean, there could be theoretically microbes somewhere on the surface of Mars. We don't know yet. We've only really explored only a little bit of it, and we're not sure what's there. But if we do find microbes on Mars, I say Mars belongs to the Martians, even if they are microbes. We leave them alone. We go ahead, we study the world, but we go ahead and follow what NASA does pretty much every mission to another world, which they've got a very, very strict code for planetary protection. They don't go ahead and just land these things there. These things are these spacecraft are kind of sanitized. They're looked at. They're making sure that nothing can contaminate another world.
So it's almost like the Hippocratic Oath, where at first do no harm.
Correct.
And then do what you can from there.
Yeah, well, yeah, pretty much. But you want to go ahead too and explore the world. And yeah, that's why we've sort of upgraded things as we've gone along. We do have 2 active rovers right now. One of them, Opportunity, has been there since about 2004. The other one, Curiosity, has been there since about 2012.
It sounds like 2 strippers, actually.
Yeah. And the other one, the new one that's coming out, Mars 2020, which is going to be landing, we hope, in the year 2020, is going to be carrying along a small little helicopter drone, which is going to be really cool. So then this way we could go ahead and use the drone, take a look, see what's going on, before we send the rover anywhere. And the drone can sort of kind of scout out and say, okay, this path looks kind of safe. You can take the rover this way. Or, yeah, no, that traverse you were going to do, not such a bright idea. There's a big bleeping boulder in your way. So you want to go ahead and make sure that, you don't want to hit that thing. So we're going to go ahead and avoid that. But it's for the first time ever, we're going to go ahead and get like sort of a bird's eye view, literally, of the planet Mars once this rover gets there.
That's
really,
awesome.
really
and
exciting.
That sounds like something like, do you feel that if aliens would be, or other cultures of planetary people, I don't know how to be politically correct about that, but do you feel that that's the same kind of approach that they would take, and that maybe why some people claim to see UFOs and so forth? Or
well,
take us off topic.
Yeah, I was going to say
no. It's all good. I'll entertain the question, sure, because I've got some thoughts on that. To be honest with you, I'm in to quote the great Carl Sagan. I kind of wish we were being visited every Wednesday, but we're not. Everybody comes up with oh well, I've seen this or I've seen that, or they talk about books or pieces of metal or anything like that. They talk about them, but it's never the objects themselves. They present. I remember that just ridiculous video that somebody produced a while back ago, the alien autopsy, whatever the devil it was.
Yeah.
That was really cool. Somebody's apparently had enough time on their hands. But do I believe we're being visited? Not at all. I don't know about you, but we've been sending radio signals out since, good Lord, since the 1920s, since we actually started radio. Television, the same thing. And guess what the first television transmission was?
Man, I want to guess. I probably know this.
The Honeymooners.
Wrong. It was the Munich Olympic Games, the one before World War II. So you saw that, and I don't know about you, but if I was an alien looking at that and looking the way at those games were going on and the way that big guy was going up there, I'd be like, yeah, these people are nuts. We're staying away from them. quarantine the sector. No, we're not going in there. But some people might think they actually are here, but because they're using sort of like Star Trek's non-interference directive or Star Trek's prime directive, we won't know that they're here or something like that. I'd actually, to be honest with you, if we're actually being visited, to me, I don't think it's going to really do anything from a social standpoint. I think that's the big fear, that it's going to disintegrate society in some way.
Well, what bathroom do they use then?
There you go.
Everybody's acting really rationally lately, so I think aliens visiting from outer space would go over pretty nonchalantly right now.
Oh boy!
Come on.
Okay. All right. I think we got to wrap this up.
The bathroom one's great. I love it.
All right, let's go. Talk about Jupiter made our list, Joe and I's list. That'll be our number one on our list. Tell us a little bit about Jupiter.
Jupiter is the biggest world in the solar system. In fact, we all think that all of the planets revolve around the sun. Well, not really. Jupiter is kind of so large. Technically speaking, it doesn't orbit the sun.
Really?
Yeah. To explain this kind of a little better, for a small planet like Earth, which is like, really, really small compared to the mass of the sun, right? The center of gravity is just so darn close to the center of the sun that we don't even notice that our orbit's slightly off kilter. But for Jupiter, it pulls at that center of mass between the sun and what's called the barycenter. It's so massive, that it's sizable enough that for both the sun and Jupiter, both that orbits to kind of point in the same place. So in some instances, because of that pull, Jupiter really doesn't orbit the sun. It's really wacko. But yeah, it is like the most massive planet in the solar system. I believe it has a short day compared to us. I think its day is like 9 hours 40 minutes or something like that.
Oh, dude, I work longer than that today.
Yeah, exactly. It's about, I'm going to introduce a new term to the show here. It's about, its distance from the sun is about 5.20 astronomical units. Now, one astronomical.
And that's based on Neil Armstrong's unit, right?
Not quite.
No,
not quite.
I've heard stories.
1 astronomical unit is equal to 93 million miles. So if you do the math, you can figure out what that means. And 93 million miles is the distance between the Earth and the sun. So that's what astronomers use to measure the planetary distances.
It's a little conceited.
Yeah, but
that's like, my horse is 8 hands high.
Oh.
Yeah, pretty much. But it works. It's been working for years. We first flew by Jupiter in, I believe, 1979, the Pioneer 10 and 11 spacecraft, and then Voyager 1 and 2 a couple of years later. But we had another spacecraft, Galileo, that was there for quite some time. And
Galileo?
Yes. And
Galileo?
Yes, sir.
Figaro?
Galileo?
Magnifico.
Okay. I thought we were going to do the thing.
Yeah.
I thought we were going to do the thing. Never mind.
Magnifico. I am just a poor boy. Sorry. All right. So
we passed Jupiter 4 times now.
We'll get on with here. The atmosphere is about 90% hydrogen, 10% helium, which also probably means some astronomers look at Jupiter and say it's a star that failed. If it was just a little bit more dense, it might have ignited. And actually, we would then have 2 stars in our solar system.
And that happens? That's a thing?
Yes. In fact,
star system. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. In fact,
I'm not the expert here.
Well, I'm just saying. I mean, how many stars do you know that have failed? Because I'm looking at you, Alvaro Levine.
Out of all the people to pick, Avril Lavigne.
Yeah.
So and that's probably part of the reason why it's competing with the sun, then, right? Because it's kind of like I could have been a contender. I could have been my own thing.
Yeah.
Like you made an Avril Lavigne reference. I had to go older. And
you went on the waterfront.
Yeah. So whatever.
Well, I'll take us to Rocky. Why not? But yeah, I mean, but that's one of the things about Jupiter. Jupiter also it has a tendency to be the solar system's vacuum cleaner, if you will, and to kind of give you a little bit of a kind of feel for that, we had a asteroid impact, or a comet impact. I'm sorry, Jupiter back in 1994. A comet called Comet Shoemaker-Levy 9 impacted the surface of the planet. It had been ripped apart, and you have had all this entire long string of pearls just impacting the planet. And it had that happened here back in 1994, we would not be having this pleasant conversation right now. So
because the internet would be down, or
Wi-Fi?
no Wi-Fi,
no Wi-Fi, no humans really.
The human factor. It's always the human factor.
Exactly. So we would not be here right now had that happened here on Earth. So Jupiter also kind of helps us a little bit to.
So Jupiter's like our big brother.
Yeah, he'll take the bullet for us. He'll take the bullet for us.
And
exactly.
In the car.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, that's our 5. So we have Mercury, Venus, Saturn, Mars, and then Jupiter. So we'll figure out our points later on. Tell me what your top 5 list would have been, and what the proper top 5 list should be.
Oh boy, it's proper top 5 list.
That's right.
Again,
you're the expert, so you're the authority here. This is going in the record books.
Okay.
What's your number 5?
We'll start from the bottom, because I was being rather I'm going to be rather controversial. My number 5 was actually one that's been checked off the list. It was Pluto.
Yeah.
And the reason why I put it there was just kind of to talk a little bit about the decision by the International Astronomical Union back in 2006 about what a planet is and so on. And I believe if any of your listeners want to go ahead and take a look at a neat video, it's about an hour. It was a little bit of a talk that was done by an astronomer by the name of Dr. Gerard Van Bell, who works out of the Lowell Observatory in Flagstaff, Arizona. The Lowell Observatory, by the way, is where Clyde Tombaugh worked very, very hard to go ahead and try to find this planet X or Pluto. And back in 1930, and finally did isolate it. The IAU got together in 2006 toward the end of its conference and decided that it was going to go ahead and take up the definition of what a planet is. Unfortunately, you had a bunch of astronomers figuring this out, and not a bunch of planetary scientists. And in a way, that's where Dr. Gerard Van Bell, who's an astronomer himself, felt that they just were messing around with something that perhaps maybe was not a good idea messing around with. Because if you take a look at the definition that they came up with, a lot of places aren't a planet. I mean, we're not a planet. So by
the definition that they came up with,
exactly.
Well, that's really interesting, though.
Yeah, so that's one of the things I just wanted to go ahead and throw out there.
I've always been a proponent of Pluto being a planet, because that's what my very mother eagerly brought us 9
pickles or whatever.
Pickles, yeah.
Yes. Otherwise, pizzas.
Yeah,
pizzas. You can use pizza. Hey, you eat what you want. I'll eat what I want. Thank you very much.
But either way, it's 9 somethings, and
9 somethings.
So there needs to be something there. So. But then, of course, we're talking about dwarf planets and other things that qualify or quantify as planets, with Ceres, Haumea, Makemake, and Eris.
Like the exoplanet kind of.
Right, and in fact, even the New Horizons spacecraft that actually flew by Pluto in 2014 is actually going to be making another port of call at the end of this year to what they call a Kuiper Belt object, a place called Ultima Thule, which they just named, and that's going to be really, really exciting. So that's going to happen around New Year's Day of 2019. So keep
so do you see
an eye for it.
Do you see maybe the classification changing, or other planets being added as legit, like full-fledged planets?
I don't know. I think the IAU is just going to go ahead and stand down and see what happens. But I think Pluto. The sad part about it is that the decision came as Pluto as New Horizons was en route to the planet. My thought was, all right, well, let's see what happens when New Horizons get there, because I had a feeling it was going to go ahead and it was going to go ahead and rewrite the books on Pluto, and sure enough, it did. I mean, we only had a look at a good look at one part of Pluto's hemisphere, and lo and behold, wow, did it go ahead and really knock our socks off. I mean, there are literally ice flows running around that world. There's that heart feature that everybody knows about. There's just so much going on there. It's a place that is just begging for us to go ahead and return. And who knows? We still might get an orbiter around there to answer more questions, because again, we've only seen really one hemisphere of that world, but we've come a long way. I mean, the first image that we saw was just this blotchy thing, and thanks to the New Horizons,
like a sonogram.
Yeah, pretty much. And but thanks to New Horizons, which really flew by there. It to give you an idea how fast that spacecraft was moving to get out there that quickly, and it still took the spacecraft almost a little under 10 years to get there. It was launched in the afternoon. By the evening, it was out beyond the orbit of the moon. Now it took Apollo 3 days to get there.
Wow.
This thing was just booking. So that Atlas V that United Launch Alliance built really took it that far, and that momentum literally carried it out to Pluto and beyond. It's going to go right out through the Kuiper Belt and out into stellar space eventually. The spacecraft is really only about the size of a baby grand piano. And the gentleman that built it, I had a couple of minutes to talk to him about it. I thought the design was ingenious, because the way he described it to me was sort of like a thermos bottle design. It was really designed to try to keep the electronics in there warm and operating, so this way, or at least at an operating temperature, because you're fighting space outside, and believe me, that's cold. You want to go ahead and make sure that your electronics are basically operating and so on. And gosh darn it, this gentleman really built a tough little spacecraft. But I just wanted to go ahead and mention Pluto out there, because Pluto's getting some love out there because of its sort of cast off status.
And it's named after a Disney character, right?
Right, yeah. Pluto the dog came first. We're running a little bit out of time here, so let's go ahead and jump to your number 4 then. What was 4 on your list?
Number 4 was Saturn, for the reasons we went ahead and talked about.
And I do want to point out that Saturn was both Joe and I's number 1.
Right.
Was interesting. So that was because of the rings and because of Cassini, which was very intriguing and newsworthy within the past few years. What's your number 3?
Number 3 was Jupiter, and just a quick plug for Jupiter. There's a mission going on right now. We think it might fold up this summer, but it's a mission called Juno, which is flying around Saturn right now. Its mission is to discover what's under the hood of Saturn, to see what processes are, how the clouds and the bands and the zones on Jupiter work. There is a public outreach camera on board called JunoCam.
Oh, that's cool.
Theoretically, that camera should have only lasted about maybe 8 passes. It's still operating because of the massive radiation that's in and around Jupiter. It really should have been knocked out, but gosh darn it, that camera is still operating, and it wasn't really the most robust camera around there. So what NASA's doing, they don't have an imaging team on this mission. So guess what? The public is the imaging team. If you want to go ahead and try to help NASA process some of these images, by all means, go over there, sign up. They'll be more than happy to have you and help NASA go ahead and process some of these images coming off of JunoCam.
Very cool.
So go ahead and take a look at that. My second one was Mars, for all of the reasons we talked about. And the first one, which I'm surprised you guys didn't mention, was us, Earth. The reason why is right now, this is the only world, so far as we know, that harbors life anywhere in the universe. We don't, we see the signatures possibly for life elsewhere, but not the proof of it yet. So guess what? This Earth, this world is, as far as I'm concerned, unique because it can harbor life.
That's a really great way of putting it. And that was actually one of the reasons I didn't pick Earth, is because we really fucked a lot of shit up down there.
Yeah, if I could go to any other planet, I'm on that plane. It didn't make my top 5 either, so that's really weird. Saturn was both our number ones, and Earth did not make our top 5. We had very different lists.
But he is an expert.
He is the expert, so we were going to defer to his. So, Gene, thank you so much for coming on List Rate Rank.
Gentlemen, I had a blast tonight. This was great, Hutton. I'm hoping if you guys will allow me to, I'm hoping to come back. You're
definitely our go-to for space. There's plenty of it, so I'm sure we'll come up with another topic. Tell our listeners where we could hear more about your podcast, Talking Space.
The website is www.talkingspaceonline.com, or you could go ahead and find us on iTunes. We're also on Google Play. We're also on TuneIn Radio, soon to be, I hope, on iHeartRadio, and we're trying to cover all the bases. Again, we've been around for about 9 years, and we're hoping to stay in business right through until they throw me in the box. So that's how long I want to be in.
So up until the Kepler belt, right?
Yep, that's it. Up until the big asteroid hits and puts everything right.
All right, Gene. Once again, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
You guys
thank
rock.
you very much. You have a great day, sir.
Oh, gentlemen, thank you. You guys rock. It was fun.
Appreciate it.
Bye now.
Bye.
Please rate and subscribe to List Rate Rank on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you download your podcasts. Follow at List Rate Rank on Twitter and Instagram, and like List Rate Rank on Facebook to join in on the fun. This has been List Rate Rank.
And many more.
Joe, you are wearing a nice feather boa right now.
I am. It's actually a faux fur boa.
Oh, my apologies.
Yes,
I apologize.
I don't like to wear animal products.
Well,
but
I
like the way they look on the animals.